All right. Good morning or good afternoon. I guess that depends on what time zone you're in currently, but this is Kyle Johnson from ClearScript. Thank you for everyone that is participating in today's webinar. I believe this is webinar number 3 or 4. A very important topic today regarding biosimilars that are coming to the market and how they're affecting or will affect your pharmacy benefit plan. I have two guest presenters that are part of ClearScript, both PharmDs, Nicole Christian and Brian Milbert, that will be leading the presentation and or discussion. I'm just moderating it. Thank you to other folks from ClearScript that have contributed to putting this all together and are managing it behind the scenes. And a sincere thank you to everybody for agreeing to participate or jump on and listen to this webinar, because we know everybody's time is valuable and there's a lot of webinars to choose from. So it means a lot that you are all participating today. So agenda-wise, I'll do a quick welcome. Then I'm going to turn it over to Nicole and Brian regarding the rise of biosimilars and how they affect your benefit plan. Then we'll have a questions and answers session and what's next or next steps. So I'll just do the quick introduction of ClearScript. Selfishly, as organizing this, we get to talk and tout ClearScript and remind everybody who we are and what we do. There's a lot of scrutiny currently regarding PBM, so I'll just come out and say we're not the big three. We actually fired one of the big three back in 2004 when we launched ClearScript in 2005. So as a PBM, we are a wholly owned business unit of Fairview Pharmacy Services, and that flows into Fairview Health System. Founded in 2005. Domiciled in Minneapolis, 100% owned. So our shareholder obviously is Fairview, which then contributes and assists communities that we serve. So ultimately, our shareholders become our self-funded employers and the patients that we serve. So I think we're unique in that aspect. We are a nationwide PBM. We're licensed in approaching all 50 states, just shy of that. We are a national, through Fairview, a national specialty and mail order pharmacy via Fairview, and a national retail network, including all major chains. We typically serve third-party administrators, although we do have some business that is with health plans or health insurance companies. Our primary focus is in the healthcare space, tribal nation space, and public sector. 60+% of our business would be what you would recognize as a health system or healthcare organization. Around 1/4% is tribal nation, and the rest falls in that public sector or other business, largely through TPAs, third-party administrators. All of our business is in that self-funded, governed by ERISA space. And we distribute our products through brokers and consultants nationally. So we're not a big three PBM. We love that Mark Cuban and others are bringing this to light all the way to Washington, D.C. It's right up our alley because we frankly started or founded ClearScript in 2005, really to combat the alternative in the market space, largely driven by the big three. Next slide. So our services, we feel we have best-in-class providers via mail and specialty through our affiliation connection with Fairview. Very responsive consultative account services. So it's not just about giving data, it's about helping our employers digest that data and make informed decisions based on that information provided. Aligned interests, which means, once again, we're more of a partner, less of a vendor. And we feel that our model in that transparent pass-through arena fits perfectly with helping our clients achieve their goals, objectives, and interests. Member-centered service and wellness initiatives. obviously based on our health system foundation. We believe in positive and optimal health outcomes. And we feel that that's largely coupled with a very member-centered approach via, the way that we manage our patients as a health system. Analytics and actionable data. An example of that is our rebate reports that are supplied with the rebate checks are line itemed at the claim level detail. So we actually provide in the invoice the detail in individual rebate dollar value, which is, I think, really unheard of in terms of just your typical PBM market. And then performance and proven results, proofs in the pudding. And we feel we've done a great job and continue to do so in the markets that we serve. So we obviously focus on the healthcare space, the tribal space, school districts, and municipalities. We want to be not everything for everybody, but the best, best in class providers for the markets that we currently serve. Next slide. So I'm your moderator. I'll also moderate some of the questions that are provided. And I get to introduce Nicole and Brian. So quick bio. We're right on time here at 12:06. Nicole completed her PharmD at the University of Minnesota in 2007, and she's worked in the health system pharmacy space where she's gained retail, hospital, discharge, long-term care, pediatrics, and compounding pharmacy experience. She's worked for our parent organization, Fairview, since 2009 as the pharmacist in charge at one of our clinic locations, transitioned to ClearScript in 2016. As the clinical pharmacist over our government programs, she has experience in formulary management, pharmacy benefit ops, CMS regulation, compliance, and client services. For the past 6 years, she's become one of our clinical account executives, partnering with plans to help shape the future of our pharmacy benefit and meet the health goals of their members. Nicole supports various lines, but is our clinical account executive on a number of our tribal nations and their enterprises throughout the country. Brian Milbert, clinical account executive, is a member of the PBM clinical operations team, acts as the clinical liaison supporting the collaboration between the client, the PBM account services team, and PBM clinical team. Using his clinical skills as a pharmacist and his experience in creating new clinical products and enhancements, he will monitor your plan, or your client's plan results, and make recommendations for clinical improvements and/or opportunities. His diverse background in managed care, coupled with his exceptional problem-solving skills, provides clients with a valuable resource for managing and improving their pharmacy benefit. Specifically, he has solid experience in providing clinical account executive support to our health system clients. Brian is readily accessible by phone or email to meet his needs. He's a licensed pharmacist since 2011. And everybody will get the rest of this bio. I want to, not to cut short Brian's bio, but both Brian and Nicole are big team players of ours, are superstars within our organization. Brian primarily handles the health system clients and what our health systems are trying to do in their respective space. So brings a lot of that focus to the clients that he serves. So ClearScript's very lucky to have both. I think we're all lucky to have them talk about a very apropos topic in the market currently, and that is biosimilars. So how will the rise of biosimilars affect your pharmacy benefit plan and takeaways for plan sponsors? So I'm going to turn it over to Nicole and Brian.
All right, thanks, Kyle. All right, so we're going to start today with just a little bit of a background, a little bit of the clinical information on biosimilars. What are biosimilars? Just so we can all be on the same page and give you a little bit of a background. So what we're looking at here is just the differences between our small molecule drugs, which are commonly used for a variety of diseases and medical conditions. These drugs are manufactured via chemical reactions. I was joking yesterday with everybody that take you back to 9th grade chemistry class. It's going to have those very simple chemical structures. You can see the aspirin molecule down there in the very bottom, that teeny tiny molecule in comparison to the big giant molecule for Humira next to it. These are often widely available medications, and often because these processes are very simple to complete and use relatively inexpensive ingredients, they're often produce very affordable drugs. Some other small molecule drugs besides aspirin that we have on the screen are statins or antibiotics that we're all familiar with. In comparison, we have biologics. We have Humira. They're listed on the right. These drugs are used to diagnose, prevent, treat, and cure diseases and medical conditions. These are produced using biotechnology. They're usually via some sort of microorganism, such as a yeast or bacteria, or within a plant cell or an animal cell. So much different processes taking place in order to make these drugs. As I mentioned, much larger structure. They're protein-based, and they have a large number of molecules. You can see the chemical formulas, obviously a much larger numbers of those atoms there. Some examples of some biologics besides Humira, we have ones that mimic the proteins in our bodies that we're all familiar with, like insulin. It's been around for a long time. Humira is an example of a manipulated antibody, and then vaccines are also produced using this process as well. All right, we can move to the next slide. So some regulatory events that have happened along the way to help with the production of biologics. Originally, we have in 1984, the Drug Price Competition and the Patent Term Restoration Act, which allowed the FDA to approve generic versions of brand name drugs without repeating the same efficacy and safety studies. When applying with the FDA, generic manufacturers must prove their drug is the same as the original brand from a molecular, dose, and form standpoint, but not really having to repeat those safety and efficacy studies that the brand name medication had to go through. In 2010, Biologic Price Competition and the Innovation Act was created to foster additional competition in that biologic product space. There are two different pathways that these medications went down to gain their FDA approval. The original one is the standalone application, also known as the reference product application. For that first product that's made, the biosimilars go down a different pathway, which is the 351(k). A biosimilar is being that highly similar with no clinically meaningful different comparison to the reference product. So two different application processes, similar to brand versus generic, not needing to reproduce all of the same studies, but still showing that the medication's not toxic and has the same safety standards, but still efficacious in the same way. All right, we can go to the next slide. So just a few definitions as we move along. So just to recap on biosimilars, being a biologic medication that closely resembles the originator biologic medication, or also known as the reference product. A biologic can have no clinically meaningful differences, meaning the portion of the medication or the portion of the structure that is responsible for the clinical effect cannot be different. And they provide the same potential treatment benefits and are generally made using the same natural sources, whether that was that animal or plant sourcing material. Next slide. Next, we have a kind of a little bit of a tweak on the biosimilars is interchangeable. These are also biologic medications that are closely resemble the biologic medication, but they go above and beyond just being highly similar. They meet additional requirements that are set forth by the FDA. These biosimilars can be substituted for the reference product at the pharmacy, depending on state laws, in similar manner to a brand versus generic medication can be. These ones are a lot more related and hence interchangeable. Essentially, these are offering a much more flexibility between the biosimilar and that original reference product. And then last, the BioBetter has become a new popcorn word out there in the market. BioBetter is a new biosimilar class that has an enhanced characteristics compared to that reference product that's making it even better, either whether it's better efficacy or a more convenient delivery method. So the one example that we have right now is Zymfentra, the biosimilar for Remicade, which was a IV infusion for anti-inflammatory drug. When Zymfentra came out, this one is the first to be same medication. However, it's a subcutaneous injectable product that can be delivered at home, no longer an IV infusion. So from a patient tolerability standpoint and ease and convenience, much more desirable option for a patient to be using at home. All right, so I'm going to pass it off after we got all that clinical jargon out of the way, off to Brian to go over some of our market dynamics.
All right, thanks, Nicole. So thanks for covering the clinical aspects. So what does this mean in the marketplace? So a small molecule drug versus the biosimilar. Small molecule, we're used to what are called competitive launches, and also because of the fact it's so cheap and easy to produce. A lot of times the raw ingredients made overseas in massive quantities, so the cost per additional dosage form is really small. So it's pretty easy for a manufacturer to really compete on cost. Competitive launch would be similar to like a Crestor back in the day, where the brand was excluded or moved to non-preferred, and the generics, many times 10, 11, 12 manufacturers really flood the market, and the price really drops to the point where it's macked, where it could go from costing dollars per tablet to pennies. So there's a pretty major price difference, and it occurs relatively quickly. We're talking in the matter of months. Sometimes you get an exclusive launch for small molecules, where you get the first approved generic gets 180 days of exclusive launch period, where they're the only generic on the market. So typically you see the price of the brand generic only about 10% or so. And then it all depends. After that, other manufacturers can jump in. If it's a popular drug with high utilization, it may attract other manufacturers, and you'd see the price of the generic drop significantly after that. Or if it's a rarely used drug, you may only have 2 or 3, sometimes even 2 manufacturers, and the price of the generic remains relatively high. And that's sometimes where you see a brand over generic strategy, where the brand is able to offer a net of discount cost much cheaper than the generic. So that does occur. Moving over to the biologics, as Nicole mentioned, you need to manufacture this in living cells. Sometimes it's you take a bacteria and you genetically engineer it to produce the biologic entity that you're looking for. You can't produce this in bulk, and it's harder to do. So generally what you see is very similar to competing brands of the same product. My coworkers are sick of this analogy, but it's if you talk about Dasani versus Aquafina, they're selling the same water, it's just a different brand. So that's typically what the dynamic looks like versus the small molecule brand versus generic. So and when you get in that space, if you have essentially the same product and it works the same from a clinical standpoint, you negotiate on cost. So that's it's a really pure form of competition, where the more manufacturers are out there, and the ones that can manufacture at the lowest cost are able to gain more market share and also compete for formulary preference. So that's how the biologic market works. And typically the time frame plays out longer because it takes time for a product to launch and then negotiate for favorable formulary placement. And the shifting of market share, if you can't flood the market, it takes time. In the small molecule space, you can it can take months. Sometimes it can take many years for that market share to slowly shift or the balance of power to move. So that's the main takeaway with small molecule biologics. Harder, more complicated, takes longer, more like competing brands versus the small molecule generics that we're typically used to. Okay, next slide. And this is an indication of the timeline of the biosimilar launches. As Nicole said, that the recent legislation of 2010 really kind of kicked off the biosimilar race. You see that somatropin was one of the first products with biosimilar competition. The reference brands genotropin, norditropin, which are growth hormones, and then we get into the filgrastim, and then on the medical side, you're probably more familiar with the Remicade. That was really the first product where the biosimilars really came in and drove that net cost down, but it's on the medical side. On the pharmacy side, it's really the insulin glargine that the Lantus that people may be familiar with, and the main point of the slide here is that it takes time, and you see all the different biosim launches in there, and some of them haven't even launched yet. So it just shows that it takes time to develop, and this is relatively new. So the main biosim surge is just really starting now, even though that these launches started back about 10 years ago. Okay, next slide. This slide shows how long it takes for really the addition of biosim competition to really help move that market share and push it over to the biosims and away from the reference brand. Sometimes that happens relatively more quickly, and sometimes it takes longer. As you can see, the line there in the middle of the reference point, that's 3 years post-launch, and after that, you can see that it can take 3 to 5 or more years to really kind of level off and meet that new steady state that the biosim competition has brought in. So, for example, with the launch of the Humira biosims, major relief isn't going to come this year or next year. It'll take time to really build up steam toward the end of this decade. Okay, next slide. The long-acting insulins, I mentioned that. The insulin glargine, this was the first real major pharmacy side product that saw a lot of utilization, a lot of visibility. Mentioning that this has been around a while. The patent expired on Lantus back in 2015, and then you had this original biosim launched, Biosimilar, back in 2016. Because there was only one manufacturer, Lantus was able to really put pressure on Biosimilar and offer better rebates to maintain their market share. And the reference brand is going to really try hard to maintain that market share. And then in 2020 is when Semglee launched, and also subsequently a few months later, the first interchangeable biosim launched of Semglee, and that really helped push the equilibrium over to the biosims, where by the end of that year, the reference brand is commonly excluded, and that's pretty much the case across the industry. So that I would look at insulin glargine as the big example of really the potential of biosims to really displace that reference and also really drop the net cost for the foreseeable future. And another thing to mention here with the insulin is that the manufacturers sometimes have a two-pronged approach. Sometimes they offer a high-cost, high-rebate branded version, and sometimes they offer a low-cost, no-rebate version. So you may see that out there in the marketplace, and with our examples of Humira, we actually have both of them as preferred options. So if you have a high deductible plan, that unbranded low-cost version may be more attractive. So that's how the biosim manufacturers are offering options that best suit certain formularies. Okay, next slide. Okay, let's jump forward. Okay, one sec. Okay, thank you. The Humira biosims, this is the launch event that's been a long awaited for many payers. Humira is the #1 on many plan spend lists. So we did have the first launches here early in 23. They happen to be non-interchangeable and low concentration. So the low concentration only represents about 20% of the overall use. The high concentration is more popular, but coming into 2024, we expect the launch of high concentration and interchangeable formulations. So right now we do have some biosimilars on the formulary: Amjevita, Soltezo, Hyrimoz, and then the unbranded generic. But looking for those higher concentrations to launch, and potentially moving market share from brand Humira. But again, I expect it to be at parity for quite some time until you do get a lot of competition enough to really push that market share. But in the meantime, plans are going to see significant savings here starting in 24 and moving into 25. Okay, next slide. And then we mentioned Stelara. Stelara is a lot of times number 2 or 3 on the spend list. And good news is that we do have some biosim competition coming up here in potentially as early as 2025. There is another manufacturer that could potentially launch after that. So since it is a highly utilized product, I would expect it to attract more manufacturers, but it is a good omen that Stelara will also be facing biosimilar competition in the near future. Okay, next slide. So the PBM strategies for managing is that in having all these manufacturers of essentially the same product, they negotiate on price, and they negotiate for formulary placement and placement within utilization management priorities. So the savings from that negotiation and is passed on to plan sponsors, and members also enjoy the savings too. Formulary utilization management, focusing on lower net cost, and as soon as it passes the safety threshold, the priority is put on the lowest net cost products first, and then if they try and fail, then they move to the next product. And also we do pipeline monitoring and keeping track of how many manufacturers are coming, and for there's a pipeline slide later, I can call out that that is taken into account, especially in the very active anti-inflammatory class. Okay, next slide. Other strategies utilizing for ClearScript and Fairview Pharmacy Services and Fairview Specialty Pharmacy, work very closely with them to make sure that we align with the best options for plan sponsors and members, and offer really high touch support, and we closely coordinate with them. And also for prescriber tools, there's called real-time benefit, which the plan or the prescriber is able to see the member's benefit right there at the point of prescribing, so they know what is preferred and what may be behind a step or non-preferred. So that'll help. It also offers the full choice of preferred products. Members can also look at the online drug search tools, which offer pricing and also show formulary preference and priority. And then PBMs and ClearScript also, we can conduct targeted outreach to prescribers, especially within health systems, and work with their prescribers to make sure that they have a leg up and have assistance to pick the best product for their members. Okay, next slide, and I believe it's back to Nicole.
All right, thanks, Brian. So just to review, we'll go over some key concepts. We've got this divided out for a couple different perspectives. So first, with plan sponsors, first key thing to kind of realize is that biosimilars in this space are not really truly generics. Like Brian had mentioned, they're competing brands in the eyes of the FDA with the same effectiveness and safety profiles as the originator product. Competition from biosimilars will over time deliver lower net cost of the therapy, and spend should drop dramatically, as Brian's graphs has shown over time, but it does take time. And with the third bullet there, with formulary compliance, it's crucial to deliver the maximum savings with getting the right and the PAs and everything, and directing members towards those lower net cost products, and helping steer just the general coverage of the medications in that manner. And keep in mind that at face value, biosimilars may not look like the cheapest option when you prefer them on your formulary. In comparison to the reference product, it can be a mix of reference products and biosimilars on the formulary, or just biosimilars, but it all comes out to which one ends up being, the better deal with those rebates in favor, rebates on the other drugs that those manufacturers offer as well. So oftentimes you'll hear those drug prices thrown around on hot news cycles, especially in this category when the drugs are in high competition for those high prices. Go to the next slide. All right. And then in the prescriber and utilizer space, again, those biosimilars are not truly generics. But then for members and prescribers, they should understand that these biosimilars are just as safe and effective. The FDA application process is the same. They do have to submit their safety and toxicity studies in order to get approval, and the benefits and the risks have been evaluated as well by the FDA. Interchangeable does not necessarily mean more effective or safer or better quality than the non-interchangeable biosimilars. It's just a luck of the draw, I think, almost in how that manufacturing process happened, and that protein is more similar, and the way that the active component is situated in that protein is more similar, that they're allowed to be viewed and taken up by the body in a very similar fashion, that you just get that extra designation. It really isn't any more safer or effective for the member. And then still keeping with the referencing the formulary benefit, and as Brian had just mentioned, the real-time benefits, being able to do member benefit checks, seeing what is the preferred option for the member at the point of prescribing, has been a real-time saver for physicians. So always keeping that in mind as well. All right, next slide, and we'll hand it back over to Brian.
Thanks, Nicole. As I mentioned previously, there are the anti-inflammatory class is going to be going to be really active here in the next few years. Calling out a few products that are of interest. For example, Actemra, Cimzia, Cosentyx, Simponi. These are all in the anti-inflammatory class, and with biosims, with imminent biosim launches or other biosim, or the potential to launch in the next year or two. Long story short is expect some formulary moves, in whether it's moving to preferred, non-preferred, but also expect the start of eventual savings, net of rebate savings, with the additional competition on these products. So good news is that I know for many, many years we've been waiting for relief in the anti-inflammatory class, and now it's finally arrived. But it'll take some time to play out. One example where it's going to take some time to play out is Enbrel. That has been a popular drug for many, many years, but litigation has pushed off biosim competition to 2029. And a lot of times you'll ask, hey, why is it that we have biosims that are approved by the FDA, they're just sitting there? That's because they're not allowed to launch. based on either litigation or patent issues. Also, one last good news about Xolair. I know that many have seen that there's been an expanded indication from severe asthma into multiple food allergies, but that will be potentially facing biosimilar competition here in the near future, potentially even as early as before the end of the year. But long story short is that the biosim dam has broken, and but it will take some time to play out from a planned saving standpoint. All right.
All right. Well, thank you, Brian and Nicole. I failed to mention Brian's history before pharmacy school was owning a Culligan distribution company. So when he mentioned Aquafina and Dasani, he's an expert in that area. So, thank you to both of you. They're part of a team of folks at ClearScript. I'm at a conference down in San Antonio, and very proud to be able to be on the road, knowing that Brian, Nicole, and team are taking care and serving our clients. And so, this is just a taste of what ClearScript brings, but I think it's a taste of the relationships that Brian and Nicole build with our clients, talking about complex, complicated, at times trivial, critical topics in the pharmacy space. So very much appreciate both of you. Reminder, if you want to submit questions and answers, please do so. I know that I received a note from folks that maybe the Q&A is not going through, so you can send those to clearsales@fairview.org as well. But I do have a couple of questions that came through, so I'm going to ask those to Brian and Nicole. It's 12:36. We try to keep these webinars in respect of everyone's time to around 45 minutes, so I think we can get through these. And we'll send recordings out to anybody that wants them and on the list. And we'll schedule a follow-up ClearScript coffee and chat with Brian and Nicole, and we'll invite folks to view that recording as well. So, Brian, Nicole, are more biosimilars covered on the medical benefit or the pharmacy benefit? Has there been a shift in spend from medical to pharmacy or vice versa, and what can we expect?
Nicole, I can take that jump ball. Yeah, initially there were more biosims on the medical side. Remicade is a great example. But as we've seen, that's really starting to shift more toward the pharmacy side. Initially with the Lantus, and now with all the biosims that are launching here, and from a shift from the medical side to the pharmacy side, that Zymfentra, if I'm pronouncing it right, that sub-Q version of Remicade, that will really help shift costs from the medical to the pharmacy side, because you're moving the site of care away from an infusion clinic or inpatient setting to a home. So major savings there. So yeah, we would expect that shift. You're always still going to have some biosims over on the medical side, but I think that you will see a continued shift over to the pharmacy side as time goes on.
Question 2, a very apropos topic as we see patient assistance programs. Are there manufacturer coupons for biosimilars?
Yeah, Kyle, there are usually coupons available. In most cases, it's in those branded biosimilars, so the ones with the catchy name that we don't always know how to say, and the ones that are more that generic chemical structure name or the antibody name. Those are the ones. Sometimes they don't have coupons, but every once in a while, one will surprise us and throw a coupon out there.
Okay. Do regulations of biosimilars and interchangeables vary from state to state?
Yes, they do. Most a good example is with the substitution, interchangeable substitution regulations that most do permit the exchange of interchangeable biosims at point of sale, but not all. So it's important to check, your state's pharmacy regulations, and also there is some difference with the time frame required for communication to the prescriber about such substitutions. So for the most part, yes, but it's always wise to check to make sure that it's permissible in your state.
That was a good question. If the current crop of Humira biosimilars, low concentration, are not being utilized much, does this somehow benefit plan sponsors today?
Yeah, we actually noticed that indirectly it has. It's actually changed the market landscape, and manufacturers were able to offer better rebates on their product as a whole outside of Humira. And so it actually brought up rebates all over the place to kind of foster that competition. And it helped those new brands establish footholds in the formulary, kind of ushering the way for those higher concentrations to come in, and as we're waiting for those launches. So yes, definitely seen some increases there.
Speaking of the manufacturer, Nicole and Brian, how do manufacturers, this is a tough one to answer probably, how do manufacturers view biosimilars?
Yeah, I would think that it really depends on what shoe or what foot the shoe is on. If you're the manufacturer of a reference product, you're not going to like to see biosimilar competition because you obviously spent the money on the development, and you would like to run that out as long as possible. So the competition will drive down, your ability to profit off that. But many times you do get 12 years of exclusivity. So many reference brand manufacturers have made plenty of money up to that point. However, if you're a biosim or if you're a biologic manufacturer, you have the skills and expertise and capability to make other biologic products. So there's really nothing stopping you from taking another company's reference product, and if you can produce at scale and compete on price, you can put out a biosimilar for that product. So it really depends on so if you make biosimilar medications, it negatively impacts you if you have reference products, but it also expands your potential market to produce biosimilars of other manufacturer products. So if that makes sense.
That does.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned this, I can't remember if it was Brian or Nicole, but you touched briefly on this question. Why does it take so long for a biosimilar to launch, even if the FDA approved it?
Brian, do you want to take that one?
Oh yeah, I'll keep the ball rolling on here. So I did mention that it does that per the FDA. If you get a reference product approved, first time approval, you get 12 years of exclusivity. So you could theoretically, so a lot of times some manufacturers identify a product that's very popular, say, okay, I want to make a biosimilar of this. I want to go through the process of the FDA, get it approved. So I'm ready to roll when that patent expires, or it'll give me a leg up with negotiations with the reference brand manufacturer, potentially maybe an early launch based on. So having a company get out there and getting a product approved relatively early gives them a leg up when the time comes to actually enter the market space. So that's why. But so you may hear, oh, this new biosim's been approved. You can't get excited about that right away. You have to look and see when the projected launch date is, which may be quite some time out, like the case of Embro.
We're actually 1 minute till the end of the meeting, so we're going to conclude. That was the last question that I have in front of me. I'm sure there probably are other questions that are going to come in. Next slide, please. So feel free, or what's next, I should say. First of all, Google survey, please expect a survey to be sent out. I'm sure we're going to get rave comments based on Nicole and Brian's presentation. You both did extremely well. now just get back to work after this is done. There'll be future webinars by ClearScript. We'll keep everybody abreast of the future webinars and coming up. Next slide, please. If you have any questions, you can reach out to myself or Greg. Here's information for both of us. Thank you very much for everyone's time, and look for the recording, as well as we'll have a follow-up coffee or chat with ClearScript where we'll interview Brian and Nicole, record that, any follow-up questions that are needed to be answered. So sincerely appreciate all of your time, and Nicole, Brian, great job, and thank you for your participation today.
All right. Thank you much.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.